my loves. This is Karla. You are your medicine. Tú eres la medicina. Karla After Dark. Super excited to have. Hello, guys. Welcome to Karla After Dark. I'm excited for this interview because our special guest is actually. What would I call you, Jesse?
I've been thinking about this lately too, and I think I don't know. I'm just a regular guy.
A regular guy who is actually helping me create this beautiful After Dark podcast.
Yeah.
So we should have a nickname for you. I don't know. We
Producer.
Producer.
That's what I'm trying to get into the field of.
Yeah. Production, producer. Yes. And I will also call you creator because you're creating. So you're creating, I'm co-creating with you and you're co-creating with me, but we're both creators. And so I'm excited to have you here. I've been thinking, how am I going to interview this guy who already had a podcast, right? And I'm exploring this with him. And I now consider him like my partner of crime with this creation because I have no fucking idea what I was going to do. So, a beautiful soul connected us, and I was able to connect with you. And the moment I met you, everything the universe, the source showed me in that moment, I was like, oh, I think there's something cool that's going to happen with this. And I want to introduce you as Jesse Diaz, and your podcast is
The Hassle of Hair.
Hassle of Hair. And so we're going to jump in timeline. So get comfortable, guys. Get your drink because I got my kombucha. You got yours?
Yeah.
And so cheers. Actually, cheers. Yeah.
Salud.
Salud. So tell me about yourself. Tell me a little bio of I want to explore this. Whoever knows Jesse and bumps into this episode, I chose him on this one because it's in the beginning of this creation, and I wanted to include it so you guys can also know what's behind the scenes. And he's behind the scenes, which is for me in gratitude that he's making time for this for me, and he's exchanging energy with me in that form. And so for me, I want to honor that and get to explore about his world as well, where he comes from. And he has a beautiful stories about his childhood, and there's painful ones and sad ones and joyful ones. And we all have a beautiful story to share. And this is like really what I want to do this with you, Jesse. And just tell me a little bit more about you.
Yeah. First of all, I was even thinking when you're talking about the podcast, with this interview, it'd be your first month. So like we're not dropping at the same button, but this would be your first month of episodes and shows. And it's, thank you before we even get started. Thank you for, cause honestly, like I don't think I even said thank you for, inviting me on this journey with you. Cause it is a journey. Like,
it is.
Every podcast that I produce, I'm stepping into these people's worlds. And the first time I met you, I was like, what kind of world is this?
It's a little wild if you know me personally. But, I was so excited because your energy, I will say, I will explore this so people can know, and maybe they'll agree. If they know you, they'll be like, yeah, that's so Jesse. I felt like I met not the Aquaman, but
my hair's long. I get that all the time. I was like, I'm not that in shape. I was like, I do.
Es el primo de Aquaman.
The friend of the Aquaman.
The real Aquaman, but they try to just kind of change it. It's Hollywood, so. So I saw it. I was like, oh God, I've heard of him, because when you're a hairstylist, you hear about stuff. And then I remember one person in particular, she was like, oh my God, I don't know if it was actually our friend Brandy. I forget. I think it was. And she brought you up, and I was like, oh, I'm going to check it out. I never check out anybody's podcast. Yeah. I just don't have the time. I have audibles and I don't even listen to them. I buy them every month, and I'm like first chapter and I don't listen. So when I met you, I felt your energy so primal, such warrior, and knowing that you already have martial arts background. Yeah. And so I want to explore that, how how that happened with you. But tell me more, like,
Like, do you want to know like the beginning, like my childhood?
yes,
Okay.
yes. Like, how did you become Aquaman? I mean,
It's
I'm
funny.
just saying. I think everybody wants to know.
My wife at our work day is like, "Hey, your husband looks like Aquaman," and we just laugh because she's like, "No, like he does not look like." Because it ruins it for her. Because like she loves Aquaman, and she's like, "You look nothing like him."
You don't look like Jason Momoa.
No, but I grew up in San Jose. I had a really good childhood. My parents both worked like super hard. Like they both worked. My mom worked like 3 jobs. My dad worked for Pacific Bell before it was AT&T.
Oh yeah.
So it was a phone company, and like we grew up in East Side San Jose, and it was like it wasn't the best of areas, but it was very you talked about it village like,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a lot of everybody knew each other around the area, but it was, I mean, it was a crime filled area, I guess you would say. Looking back on it now, like as an adult, I'm like, man, that was seeing a hooker down the street, like just walking, that wasn't normal, or just seeing like violence, that like that wasn't normal. But like when you're living there, it was so normal, right?
Isn't that crazy when you live in an environment and you think it like that's everybody's environment?
Yeah.
Like everybody lives like that. Yeah, you know, a hooker, a drug dealer, a pimp. You know? I mean, they're cool characters, I guess.
But it was crazy. It was a looking back on it, it was a weird way to grow up. But my parents really, I wouldn't say sheltered me from it. They did things to help me not be a part of that world. So they sent me to a school that was about 20-30 minutes away. In San Jose, that's pretty far because there's schools everywhere, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's not like here in Los Baños where there's 2 schools. In San Jose, there's like 15, 20 high schools.
Wow.
Yeah, so
I didn't realize that.
yeah, there's a lot of high schools. So, and they sent me to another high school. They put me in every sports like that I can do that I like. They put me in basketball, baseball, swimming, football, everything. And so they kind of like not sheltered me, but like kept me busy so I didn't grow
Get
up
in
in that
trouble.
area.
Yeah. Keep you like healthy mentally, because as a child, you can start adapting to those behaviors. Like you start thinking that's cool and it's normal. And so they kept your mind busy and your physical able to release that stuff.
And like me and my friend were talking about it, a childhood friend, we were talking about it. He's all, this person's in prison, this person's dead, this like, and he started naming the people that we grew up around, and it was so like mind blowing for me because he's saying like this person, and it's like not that many people were in good households there, and it's pretty wild to think that like it's because I felt like it was just normal to me, and like I wasn't didn't feel like my parents were doing anything crazy.
Yeah.
That was crazy special, but they really helped me get out of that area.
Wow.
Right. So I had a good childhood till I was 15 years old, and all of it was a good childhood compared to other people. Right. Everybody there's people out there with the worst childhoods, but I had a very traumatic event when I was 15. So me and my mom she was taking me to school. Right. And, it was literally like a block away. Like, and I remember that morning we told my sister my mom told my sister like she would be back to help her with something or something happened where she was going to be back. My brother was going to school a different way. And so me and my mom were in the same car. She's taking me to school, the one that's 20 minutes, 30 minutes away. And we're on Ocala and Adrian. So that's a cross street. The Ocala is like it's a residential street, but people used it back then. They used it like a freeway. Like
it was zooming.
Yeah,
People
zooming.
just zoomed. Oh God, those neighborhoods. Actually, there's neighborhoods here in town, and they annoy me because I remember they were like zoom, and they just like think it's like okay in a residential area too.
Yeah, like overland people just.
Yeah, I'm like it's not the freeway, guy.
But so and my mom was making a left turn, and we got hit by a car, and my mom, the car got T-boned like this, and I just remember like startled and my eyes open. It's pretty like it wasn't really like a
vivid.
concussion.
Yeah.
It was like I did have a concussion, but it was more like adrenaline.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like you don't really know what's going on. I do remember, and which I'm comfortable with now saying, like, it was difficult for me to get over when I was younger, but I saw my mom like injured, like pretty bad. Like she ended up dying. She got hit. She hit her head. Or basically like she got crushed basically.
Wow.
Yeah, and so if she was, you know how like in a car, like there's the what's that, the shoulder rest, whatever, in the middle, the console in the middle. It's that separates you, right? So she was literally like on me, like here, and I just remember seeing her, and it's crazy because I just seen Jesse get out. I just heard Jesse get out, and it was my baseball coach of all people, right? Like, yeah, it was wild. Like he was driving to work, and he saw us, and he pulled me out of the car, and I remember like there was already people there, right? So the accident happened, and there's people out, like there's the houses right next to that street. People were coming outside the house, like everybody knew my mom because she was the candy lady or just a free spirit person. And I'll get to that, but so everybody's coming out of the houses, and I'm like, they already called 911, but I'm like freaking out. Like, I'm just in an accident. And I get on the phone. I was like, we just got in an accident. The cop told me, like, you have to lay down because you don't know what injuries you have. Literally, if you've seen the car, it was like that. And I got out of the car like nothing, which is wild, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I ended up getting sent to the hospital, and I had a lacerated a lacerated liver, and basically a spleen, like it ripped. Like the spleen ripped, right? And so internal bleeding, concussion, and just sore, right? And I was in the hospital for like 2 weeks, week and a half, 2 weeks. And right away, the support that we got, because I played football, and then like I said, my mom was she was part of the community, right? Everywhere we went, she was just that lady, that free spirit, loved everybody, treated everybody the same. And so I had like 100 people, maybe less than 100 people. It was a line, right? Just people visiting me.
Wow.
So like, imagine something traumatic.
It's like you had a celebrity mom and for the community, like.
Yeah.
But that's so beautiful. Like the community was able to be there and be an emotional support system for you guys. Because I'm sure you felt like it was unreal. Like it was like, is this really happening? Is this a dream? Yeah. Right. And sometimes probably I've had family members or just friends that their loved ones passed, and sometimes they love that, but it almost feels like they're overwhelmed.
Well, that's what happened was like I was 15, right?
Super overwhelmed. Yeah.
I didn't cry. I was just telling my buddy, like I didn't fully let out I didn't fully mourn for like a year and a half. Like really, I cried for other things. I cried because my dad kind of went crazy during that time when my mom passed, which is
normal.
Understandable. Yeah.
Understandable. Yeah.
And then like, I was full of emotions for other reasons. It wasn't because of my mom passing. It was just the setting that I was in was making me frustrated. So it didn't give me time to mourn. But you talking about a bunch of people coming to visit me. It's overwhelming. Like it doesn't give me time to mourn. So there's people always there. Every mom in every mom in the neighborhood wanted to take me to church.
They all wanted to nurture you and take you to church and like let God take this pain away, or just nurture you. Like I think that their intents met well, but it was not what you needed, probably, right? What did you feel at that time that you needed? If you look back to that younger self of Jesse,
it's crazy because I'll never forget this, because like this girl that I was really good friends with, she walked in and she like was crying for me.
Aww.
And I told her, I was like, don't cry for me. Like that, it's like, are you okay? Like you're like, she was so dumbfounded that I was worried about her. Like I wasn't in that mindset of mourning. I was more of like I don't know. I don't even. It was just a blur.
It's a blur. I feel like when traumatic experiences, like the chemistry of the brain. I mean, I'm not like the brain here expert, but as I learned through my journey, experiences like are imprinted and emotionally when they're that traumatic, and you don't know how to deal with it. Like we just don't know. We're not taught how to deal with very traumatic experiences. So your body chemistry just shifts, and I think you probably felt like it was like not real. Like this reality is not real.
Yeah.
Because sometimes for me, when I look back at certain timelines of certain experiences that didn't seem so traumatic, and then I look back like, fuck, I was this age and I didn't think that was a traumatic experience.
Yeah.
Like even falling from the fucking swings and shit like that. People don't realize that it actually affects us because then you have like this fear of like, I don't think I want to do that again. So those experiences can happen because you weren't comfort within yourself. Like you didn't know how to rebalance or nurture yourself through that process of pain.
Yeah.
And I think are easy for me, traumatic experience is easy to like kind of like block it. And unconsciously we do that because it's sometimes to feel it's hard to bear.
Yeah.
And for you, maybe your reality was like your siblings. Like what number are you have siblings? So what number are you of?
I'm middle child. So my brother is the oldest. My sister is from my dad and my mom. My sister is the youngest, but then we have a sister from her mom. It's her mom and my dad.
Yeah.
So she's not from our mom. I
yeah.
I don't like saying half sister.
Yeah, it's your sister.
It's
yeah.
my sister, right? So, like,
it's your sister.
So,
yeah.
And like so yeah, I'm the middle. The after my mom's death is when my other sister came.
Oh, got it. Okay,
Yeah.
so it was, and before your mom passed, it was just how many?
So 3.
It was 3 of you guys, and so from that experience, you look back, they were all probably reacting different versus like you, right? At this point, you weren't like, "Hey, sis, how you feeling?" or "Hey, bro." I think it's just it's the reality that you're facing, and you just want to learn how to cope.
Yeah.
Coping mechanisms is like we get them out of nowhere. We're just like, how do we do this?
It's so crazy because like it was a blessing. It hurt so bad,
Of course,
right? Losing my mom at a young age, but it was a blessing in many ways. Like it's weird to say that people are like, your mom died. You see your mom die, like, but it was such a blessing because. And I was literally thinking about this on my drive home yesterday, and because I had did the rapé.
Oh yes,
right?
we did that up as Friday. Yeah.
Yeah, we did the rapé. Not yesterday, the day before.
Yeah.
And we did the rapé, and it was so soothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it felt. I understand why people do it, but I understand that like. So I do want to do ayahuasca. I really do want to do ayahuasca.
Wow.
But or not can I say it?
Yes, you can.
So I
plant
do,
medicine for sure.
But because I know there's something deeper in me that I need to let out. But the rapé for me was you gave it to me, and it was just like, to me it was like, oh, I've already felt this before, this relief, right?
Yeah.
I can't, this is, how do I say? This is like the...
Revisit it again?
This is like the minor leagues of like getting to know yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that, at a young age, I had to learn that death comes quick, right? And so I learned that, so I lived a really free life. Once I mourned, I learned, I lived a really free life. I had a mishap from in my 20s when I got married, but even after that, I decided to live a free life. But there's people that they walk around, they're just like
so intense
and work and wife and kids, and it's just like
so stiff about life, like not loose, not free. Yeah, I think that's the word, free of like that this day could be the last day. Like they can't even, like they're not free. And so it's like when you're free, you're like, it could be my last day. Like this moment could be our last experience, if that makes sense. Once you understand like how death works and living and as a living being, you realize that when you're with somebody, that's the only reality. That's how I live. Like this is our only reality. I was with my son earlier. You're with your family. Those are realities in those moments, that second. And so once you start looking back in the past, you're like, did I even enjoy that? Like I remember like, did I really enjoy that concert? Did I really like immerse myself in that energy? And it's like, because we're so sometimes so stuck unconsciously in past experiences, and we're caught living almost like a robot form, and you're just like on auto, and you're just kind of like do life like that. And you start realizing like death, especially I feel like you experiencing that with your mom, I feel God, the universe had a reason for it. As painful as that experience was for you, I feel like that was your first awakening without you actually knowing.
It was. It's like, I don't know. Yeah, it was such a blessing. Like that's why you saying that. Like you saying it that way. It was a blessing, and I've learned and I've healed to understand that it was a blessing, right? Like what you offer people, right? And I can say that you offer the rape, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
But what you offer people is something very helpful and genuine. Like it's an outlet that not I want to say out. It's just like something, tool. A tool that people need to start using. And for me, that tool that I experienced early in life was martial arts. Like Friday I did the rape. Today I ran 3 miles, and I hit the sauna, and then I did jiu-jitsu sparring for about an hour. And this is what I wanted to tell you, was the same feeling I had from the rape was, I mean, it was very masculine. What I did today was very masculine, but it was the same soothing, like it was a decompression where it was just like,
you let loose. Yeah. Like you're like after a good swim, or what's a good example? Let's talk about examples. I mean, I get it what you mean, because that's why I do it. When I first explored it on one of the ceremonies I went, I was like, holy moly, what is this? I cried. Like my eyes were all watery, my nose like burning. I was like, what was that in my back? Like it shoots up, then it hits the back, and it's like, and it feels like it starts traveling through my whole body. And then I start feeling all these different sensations, and it starts clearing energetically and internally. It's working. And that's the wild part about the plant medicines, because that's also a plant, and different plants put together with tobacco leaf. And you start seeing like the intention, because every time I blow, like when I blowed you, it was a form of the clearing you. Like my intention was to clear you so you can see clarity in any way of life, because life is creation. So you start creating things. You create love with your family, you create experiences with a lot of people. And so that's a form, like my intent was to unblock anything that's stagnant in your energy field.
And it was like right when the tobacco hit up my nose, it was such a like a boom, and it just hit. And then it was at one point you told me to breathe.
It was,
and then I just felt like a soothing.
Yeah.
And I could have probably, when I was here, I could probably talk to you for like hours, because I was so relaxed, and
like no thoughts, right? Like like you're thoughtless. I don't know if that's the word, right? Like you have no thoughts. You're just in that moment. And when I'm guiding is because the part of breathe, because we are so caught in that moment. You're like, you hold it. And so what I wanted is to just exhale and breathe it in, breathe out. So you start moving your own energy that's within yourself.
Yeah. And like it's funny because I'm doing 4 podcasts right now. And the podcast that I do, I produce, the one thing I'm learning from your podcast and from EJ's podcast and just I do two funny ones.
Yeah.
Not really
The
spiritual.
why, yeah.
But
It's all good. That's live.
Yeah.
You gotta be fun.
But it's I think everything's like all these tools that are used to decompress and to understand themselves, and it's a lot of it has to do with just people trying to, it's like once you realize like living a life where it's like you're trying to how'd I say it, you're a lot of people live a life where they try to build an empire, where they try to just stack money and stack cars and valuable things and just more.
It never is enough.
Yeah. And then once they hit that wall, we're like, what am I doing? I haven't seen my family in forever.
Yeah.
I'm hunching over like this because I'm so stressed out. Like,
yes.
And so a lot of people are different. They go to these different tools and they find something that's going to work for them. And martial arts was my first tool.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Big tool.
Absolutely. Especially because you're a man. I mean, this is for men and women too, but being a man, like this is who you are in this lifetime, and using that energy as a masculine man, how you can release it in a primal way, which I feel like that's amazing, because that's why I feel like our ancestors were able to do those wild, like you look into the Mayans, how they played with a big rock, and they will do all these rituals, but it was very masculine, but they were releasing, and that was a form like a warrior energy, that you're embracing it and you're releasing it, because when you have anger or unforgiveness or resentment, or even fears, you allowing yourself to feel it through that energy and releasing it in that way. I feel like it's a medicine form for men when you're going in the mat or you're, doing all the martial arts. How long from that time, like you got married and then you evolve into a husband and then a dad, how that you added martial arts in your life?
Martial arts and my wife came around the same time. So I was in a relationship before my wife, and I was living with her, and it was, when you think about relationships as a kid, it was like a fun relationship. All we did was, this is not my wife, by the way. Like, people understand. It was just a fun relationship, right? Like everything was just about fun.
Yeah.
Making each other feel good and just going out.
Enjoying life.
Mm-hmm. And I tell this story. I've said it on my podcast before, and my wife laughs. And I took this girl to the beach, and we probably had the best day of our life, right? The best day. Like we went to the arcade. I think we got a beer. We went to the beach, and no, I wasn't 21. We didn't get a beer, but we just hung out.
Did that.
And I'm driving back to Los Baños, and I'm driving just thinking, after a good day, and I was like, this is it. Like, this is the best that it could get, right? Because I'm not going anywhere. I'm not in college. I'm working at Starbucks. I'm not doing anything to better myself. We're just having fun.
Yeah.
She's not doing anything to better herself. And I'm like, this is fun. I'm with a girl that's exactly like me, but I understood that it wasn't going to go anywhere. Like, in my head, I've always had this thing, even when my mom was alive, in my head, like I wanted, and it sounds narcissistic, I wanted to be something valuable to people, not for myself and to indulge in things, but to be valuable to people, to be something when I get older. And so it's always been in the back of my head, and because of that, I saw that the relationship wasn't good. So I ended up breaking up with her on the...
You broke her heart at the beach after a good day?
Right?
Oh, wow. I'm all...
But I did feel bad, but it just it was like...
Wow.
Right? And most of the time people think oh, you break up because it
something negative, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it has to be negative, right? Not a positive. You're so cool. I'm breaking up with you now.
But it was like I was young. I met someone that didn't challenge me
That's what it was.
Yeah.
To be honest, like listening to you, it was getting me like this, like quick, like you saw yourself through her.
Yeah.
And you said like, that's not what I want.
Yeah.
And it was not to reject her.
I see that.
Yeah, she was your mirror. And we will talk about mirrors a lot in the podcast throughout my whole episodes. Mirrors is like, you start seeing the reflection of yourself. And you saw the beautiful part of her. You saw everything about her positive, but you saw like, I'm not being challenged. Your higher self, which at that time, obviously you're not conscious into like, oh, is that my higher self? But your inner self, it was telling you this is not all. Like, this is as far as you can enjoy, but you need to challenge yourself.
Yeah.
So it calls the evolution of yourself. So you needed to evolve. Like you hit a wall.
Yeah. That's yeah. Yeah, I saw that's crazy.
I know.
I saw
you got mind fucked right now.
No, that's crazy because I did like before. I used to think it was so positive. Like I was like, it was a positive day, so I broke up with her. Yeah, I seen myself in her. It was positive, right? Like
yeah,
but
you saw all her beautiful traits.
Yeah.
That you had. So this is one of the things when I acknowledge people's beautiful traits, of men or women. Like I see their potential. It's all me.
Yeah.
Really comes down to that. I see everything. What I see good in you, it's in me. So once you understand to reverse that mirror reflection, as you start seeing, I am fucking limitless. I can do this. I can do that. Then you start shifting and changing your mind, and it's like how the evolution of our consciousness is expanding. You're like, oh fuck yeah, I'm a very powerful creator, and you just don't understand it because we're not obviously shared as earlier that. Our parents or just people that were in those timelines around us, they weren't able to give us that because it was different realities for our parents. But now you're learning it through your own personal evolution and your relationships that you're surrounded. So the more you start shifting, Jesse, like I always see, like I can see the evolution happening. Like even the small amount like that I've known you, I already seen so much growth in your own self. Yeah. So you seeing that in her, you're like, this is done. Like it's like you live your best with her and you guys created beautiful memories, and that was a point of your life that you needed to evolve, and you guys were not in that frequency no more. Like it was, you were ready to shift, you were ready to move on. And it's heartbreaking sometimes, because sometimes that happens with relationships. Of course, is very very, I don't know what's the word, uncomfortable, because when you start having those realizations, then is when you talk with but you were young.
Yeah, that's what.
How old were you then?
I was 20. I was 20.
You were a baby.
Yeah,
like, I mean, like in that time, you're like, oh, I'm
but we were together for.
But you're a baby still.
3 years. We were together for 3 years, and it was a potential. When I looking back at it, it was a potential where, because I'm a person that really. When I find a partner, like when I find a partner, even before my wife, it's like I get attached. Like I don't like
to think.
I had fun.
Yeah.
Best believe I had fun after I broke up with that girl. For like a year straight, I had fun, right? But I knew it wasn't for me, right? This constantly going out, constantly play this game of talking to women. One night stands, and it just
gets old.
It gets old, and at a young age, I learned that quick. I got a lump sum of money from when my mom passed, and I decided to just waste it. Yeah.
Oh my god.
I had like.
I feel like your mom was like cringing. I felt that moment right now. Yeah.
I just spent it on partying. I literally would go to bars, and I go to clubs, and I buy bottle service and
VIP. Like, okay.
And like living with my dad.
Where were you when I needed you? I didn't party like that.
Living with my dad.
On his tab, guys. On his tab. He's badass.
I was at 21 years old. I was just buying everybody beer and stuff, and it was just.
Let's do it, make it.
But it allowed me to live a life that was like, I think I needed to see that. I needed to see how I needed to see how fast money just goes.
Fuck, yeah, it does.
2, I needed to see that, like, just going out and basically, if you really think about it, like abusing women. Okay, no, that just sounds bad. Abusing.
Yeah, it does.
Not
objectifying.
Yes, objectifying women and just constantly just looking at them as an object rather than something that's always been in me, like love,
With
right?
respect.
With
And
respect.
yes.
Yeah, it was a game to me, right? And I learned in a year's time where I was like, no, this is not me, right? Because every boy, I would say, like, kind of goes through that when they're especially, like, I'm very outspoken, I'm very charismatic.
Yes.
I like talking to people. So I met other guys that were like me, and you just get stuck in that environment where I see it. I work at a bar. I bounce at a bar, and I see all these young men, like, with their friends, and they're there every weekend.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah, doing the same thing. You see it.
It's like don't you have other things to do, like, on the weekend? But it's wild because I lived a little bit of like that, and it does get old. I mean, the way now, like Jesse way, like buying bottles and stuff. I mean, maybe I would have. I mean, I don't judge it, but I think you needed that, that experience. But for me, similar, like you want to go have fun. I love to dance. So I think for me, it was more like, let's go and dance. That was my form of releasing, to cope a lot of things, to be honest. And then, of course, alcohol comes involves. And then next thing you know, you're like hangover and you're just like walking or like smelling like alcohol. And then, it gets old, it really does. And then you start having like those times of relationships with friends that you start realizing, I don't think I want to have this. Right?
Yeah.
Like, why? And it becomes very toxic, and I think everybody I believe in free will. Everybody should experience life however you want and learn from it with no judgment. And that's just how I see life now. Before, I will look like, oh my God. Like, you look back, you're like, let's skip that chapter, let's fast forward. But, now I see a lot of things shameless. Like, I see it as all opportunities to grow and learn from. So for you to be in that environment, being wild Aquaman, how did you decided to shift that? Like, or what came along after that?
Well, I'm having like a realization right now as I'm talking to you. But so my mom passes.
Yeah.
I'm trying to comfort myself. First, I didn't have time to comfort myself. I didn't have time to mourn. So finally, it's time for me to mourn. I become 18, because I met her when I was like 18, 19, that first girlfriend. The girl I had a long relationship with.
Yeah.
I used her, right? Used that as a tool. Like, you remember how we were talking about the tools, right? The tool, like, you have a tool, and these are good tools to use.
Yeah, absolutely.
Certain things are not good. And I was using a girl, and then I was like, okay, that's not helping. And then I used women, right? Partying, drinking, and that wasn't helping, right? And I'm just lucky enough that I wasn't getting addicted to certain things. And then here comes martial arts, right? And I love it, right? I stepped into a gym, and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with challenging myself, because that's what I was missing, was challenging myself. Didn't know that I was using it to mourn, right?
Yeah.
And then I meet my wife. I met her at a bar. So
I thought you stopped.
I did. So it was like
kidding.
around the same time, right?
Yeah. So it's like you're almost detaching from that life, but you're still using martial arts as like another form.
Because literally, like, the first week that I went into a boxing gym, I met my wife. I didn't marry her, not right away, but I met my wife the same time, right? And then I go into this relationship where me and my wife, the longest we've been away from each other in 9 years, almost 10 years, is probably a week. Like, that's the longest we've had apart from each other. We're with each other all the time. And it's crazy to think about. Like,
well, you guys are still alive. That's a good thing. And you guys don't kill each other.
But it's such a weird, like, I always tell her, like, it's like I don't know. It's like a magnet. It's like we were meant to be with each other. And it just, and since I met her, we were always together. But at the same time, so we talked about, I didn't mourn yet. I didn't fully grasp that I was hurting.
Yeah.
So I'm doing martial arts, and I'm using that to cope with things.
Mm-hmm.
And then so we get into the serious part of the relationship. We get married. She has a kid, right? She has a kid, and I, and so we're about a year in, and now I got to push. About 2 years in, I had to push martial arts to the side, right? I haven't fought yet. Was just training. I pushed it to the side, and more focused. I had to focus on my family. Once that coping, using that tool to cope, was gone. Oh, I went crazy. Like,
Wow.
Dun, dun, dun.
You got to put that background in. What happened? Bring me the popcorn.
And it's wild to talk to you about it because I'm realizing all this right now, literally right now as I talk to you. But it just, I didn't have anything to cope with. So I would fight with her. I was emotionally unstable.
Mm-hmm.
I would want her to fix me, and like this woman to fix me. She did. She's like, "What the fuck is happening to you?"
Yeah,
right?
I mean, unconsciously, right? This is all unconscious because you're not knowing how to cope any other way, right? Because now that tool that you were using is no longer happening. So now you're like, how do I release all this frustration that you're probably hurting so much that you don't even know? So you're frustrated.
Yeah.
You're like, you don't know how to speak it out, like vocalize it, to say, I'm just feeling frustrated. I'm feeling vulnerable. Like, you don't even know because the only way you knew it was like, I'm going, mad. Yeah, you're mad. You're mad. Yeah.
And then I don't even know how we fixed it. I had to just let it all out.
Yeah.
Right. And I had to finally see like, hey, this isn't right. Like you being, I didn't abuse her. I hope like I didn't mean crazy. Like crazy, not like that. Just emotionally very unstable. Like I'm talking about crying, like all the time. Like for any little thing, I would get mad. I'd throw fits. It was weird. I was like
you were
boy.
Having tantrums.
Yes, and it just. Yeah. It was, to think about it now, it like frustrates me. Like, you little boy. But I did, and finally it got to the point where she's just like, look it, like I have a kid. Like I'm not, I can't take care of you. Like you have to take care of yourself. And I went to a doctor, I think like for a week, but I didn't like it. And
like therapy. You went to therapy. That's
I shouldn't say I didn't like it. It just, I'm open to it now, but back then I wasn't ready for it. If that makes sense.
That's the real truth. Yeah. You weren't ready to be fully vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because it is scary to go there. It is for men. Yeah, it is, especially not knowing that that's not the way you were brought up. Really, like to be really very, be in a position that all eyes on you now. Like you have to observe what's inside of yourself, like why you're so upset, right? And then that awareness and being mindful, it takes practice. And so for you now that you can have those realizations, you can change now that. But you're learning from that, from your past. You were able to realize that you were still mourning.
Yeah.
Unconsciously, you were still carrying that energy of that experience in that timeline.
Yeah. And I finally realized that. And I worked on myself. I started really working out. Like I got really fit during that time.
Yeah.
So I used another coping thing. And but with understanding, like I needed to fix things. Right. So it's been pretty hard, but in 9 years, it wasn't like I fixed it that year.
Yeah.
Like it
takes
just
time.
Recently, Karla, recently.
Like yesterday. 2 hours ago.
Just recently, like we've gotten to a place emotionally where it's like it's open. It's like I had to fix myself to. I pride myself in being a good dad. I pride myself in being a good husband. And every year it's like a stepping stone where we just get better and closer.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say like I fixed myself right there and then. I had a realization where I had to fix myself, right? So I went back to martial arts. And with working, and I just did it for fun, and so that's like 23. And then we're constantly working, right? And we moved to Los Baños. We're commuting. I mean, we're grinding. We lived on 3rd Street and 3rd and K or 3rd and whatever. This corner house they fixed it up, but it's like, it was horrible.
You're like, oh, this is scary.
And we commuted, we worked our butts off,
Yeah.
we saved money. And then time came where I started to get that itch. Like, I was like, I'm 28, babe. I want to fight, right? I want to fight. And that's where I met a coach. I met a gym in town. And first I met another gym. I was driving to Merced after work.
Oh, yeah.
And I fought MMA once. And I was like, hey, I want to do this, but I can't do it at that gym. They weren't that good, if I was being honest. The coaching. And so I heard of a gym called Strike here in town. And I was like, okay, let me go there. And it just started this journey, right? Where I told my wife, where I was like, I'm going to quit my job, right? I'm going to do this, right?
Wow.
I want to fight. Like, if I can't do this, then there's going to be, I think it's never going to leave me, right? I don't want to resent you. I don't want to resent this. Let's try this. And so we took out our savings, our 401k, and we kind of just did it. We did it, and we, through fighting, like I started fighting with the Strike. I had a Muay Thai fight, had a MMA fight. So I had 5 fights. I have a bunch of smokers, and then 5 fights in the ring and cage, 5 of them. And even though we're 5 amateurs, like, it taught me so much, right? And through that process, you think that I would quit my job and things would go hectic. I quit my job. Everything went just forward. We end up buying a house. We end up, through the pandemic, I start a podcast. Through Strike and through other resources, I start thinking of building up my own business. And through all that, like, I'm here. I'm here now producing people's podcasts. I'm doing social media for people. I'm eventually gonna get back to coaching. It was like a whirlwind events, but it was like it was once I started to fix myself and understand that I needed to do something to fix myself. It was through martial arts and fighting. I finally, things just open up, and now I'm at that stage where I meet you, and you're telling me about these medicines and all this stuff, and I'm really intrigued by ayahuasca, and I'm like, that's the next step for me, to be honest, like, and healing.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at. I hope that I just went sped up through the whole entire.
You
story.
did. Holy moly! I was like, wow. Within. But in between that, I will fill in, like, I look back, like you were saying about your experience with martial arts. I think we all jump into, like, I will go through phases, like, I will be so in, because I didn't know how to release my energy, so I would jump into different hobbies. Like, I will get into biking, I'll bike the whole town, and then all of a sudden I'll be just into skateboarding. I'm determined to learn skateboarding. And so you jump into different, like, things just to feel whatever you're feeling inside, to, like, numb it. And you feel so dysregulated, if that's the right word, Steven. Is it dysregulated? It's dysregulated your nervous system from the trauma that you went through, your mom.
Yeah.
And anything in between, what happened, the dynamics of your family also brings trauma, how things went on from there, your relationships with your dad, your relationship with your siblings, and the expansion of your family. All that comes along, and then you feel like you just living life. You just voila, just do this, do that, and you just kind of like a leaf just going everywhere, like with no real direction, right? You're just flowing. But the universe works how God puts right people at what you needed, and then the gym comes. For me, it was also CrossFit. That was a way that I could heal myself. The period of time I sobered myself for 2 years, and I reconnected my relationship with myself. Even now, I'm rebirthing a new version of myself and getting to date myself. That's a relationship, yourself. And so when you weren't able to understand that, you were just kind of going along with different things, and martial arts was one of them for you. It's almost like a crutch kind of effect. Like you've used that in that timeline, and it's not like you will fully forget about martial arts. You're going to always embrace it. Like, it was, I mean, for me, fitness is always going to be part of me. Like, even if I go 2 times a week, if I go 3 days, whatever. But for me, that's not my identity no more. Before, I would attach myself to things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, this is me. I'm a fitness girl, you know, or I'm this, you know? And so it's removing all the labels, if that makes sense. Like, detach from everything, remove all the labels in between, and just really, it's you. Like, just you. Like, you just came out of your mom's womb and you're just reinventing yourself again. So it's like what I mean for when I say rebirth, it's you're rebirthing a new version of yourself. And so you're now in this part of yourself that you are getting to know yourself now again, like in this version, and understanding like what more do you want, you know, like you can dream and manifest, and you are manifesting day by day things that you probably didn't think of.
Yeah.
Right, but you were mentally like wishing it maybe, or I wonder if I can, you know, and your energy was getting that frequency, and then all of a sudden everything falls in place, the alignments happen, right? But it's because like that moment when that girlfriend relationship effect, you know, bringing it back, is that you hit a wall. You're like, I need to end things. Like it's just ending chapters. It's not a negative thing. Ending relationships, careers that no longer serves us. I think we get so attached to labels, and that's so hard to detach, because as human beings, we think like, this is it, you know, and I reached my career, I reached my diploma, I reached, you know, being a 6 year, you know, we get so attached to things instead of being open and expansive and understand like sometimes certain careers. I've met people in my chair in the hairdressing industry that, they went to be an RN, and all of a sudden, like they had this moment, like, this is not what I want. And they're like, I wanted this so bad in my 20s. Like, I'm 30 and I don't want this no more. Yeah. And all of a sudden, they're like doing other things, you know? And it's okay to explore different versions of ourselves. This is, for me, Jesse, that life is to play with. Like, we just here to play and play different roles. Fuck it, you know? Really, like, put different hats, play. It's a fucking circus, you know? Just go and enjoy and be able to manifest beautiful relationships throughout your lifetime. I think one of the things for me, bringing death into this subject, Jesse, and I'm going to ask you how it feels now in this present time, because tomorrow can be a different, you know, answer. But like for me, death, like we were talking about that in the beginning, teaches us a lot how life is so frail, you know? Yeah. And be able to reach, sometimes some people don't die, they reach to 90, 100. But sometimes we got to think, okay, well, if I don't die, would I be okay when I'm 100 or 90 or 70 that I did everything I wanted to do? Right? And like, when I was 20, I was like wild as fuck. Now I'm 30, and it's like a different versions of ourselves, and be able to celebrate that and say, hey, I tried it and it worked out for a minute. I learned that a lot of people, I connect with a lot of beautiful souls. Fuck, I enjoy life, you know? Yeah. Be able to see it that way, right? How do you feel like with when you ultimately kind of like vision yourself being not 60 or 100, you know, but just older, you know, an older version of yourself, and that you live life in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s? How will you vision and how will you feel about death? If it came, how will you feel? Like, do you live your best? No. Or you're in that pursuit?
I wouldn't say I fear death, but I know it's coming, right? Eventually it's going to come. So I'm like, let's get up and move, right? You know, like every day I wake up, I'm like, it's like you said, it's a playground. It's you're playing, but I wake up, I'm like, okay, how can I better myself? How can I better what I'm doing? I'm moving, right? Yeah. I'm going, and I don't want to be in that deathbed thinking I should have done this, I should have done that.
With regret, right? Or remorse.
And I have like in my head, in my 40s, I want to be really stable with where I'm at. Like not wealthy, but stable where I can go around the world. I can
financially free, have that freedom that you feel comfortable, like have a week off, 2 months maybe, I don't know.
And it doesn't even have to be wealth from money. It could be I have a gig or a job where like they send me here,
and that's fun.
I get to experience that.
It's
right?
all paid too. It's all paid. All this is gonna be paid.
And in my
we
40s,
gotta go somewhere. We're gonna do podcasts in the wilderness.
And in my 40s, I see myself like traveling and seeing the world because I've been in California for so long. I'm like ready to
explore,
right?
Yeah.
And I'm ready. Like it's calling me, and then when I get to, because I in my head I'm like, when I get to my 50s, I want to help. Like I want to get to that point where I get so much knowledge, right? And I get to that point and I'm like, I have all this wealth of knowledge, items, like just these things that I can see someone that's 20 years old going through the same thing with me as me, but instead of letting them having to struggle like how I did, like, hey, let me help you even go above and beyond what I've done. And right now that's my daughter, right? Like my daughter's going to be going to college in about a year and a half. Like I want in every way, like I could already see it. The way she lives is a little bit like me. She's everywhere. She's doing stats for wrestling, right?
Wow.
She's traveling with the wrestling team. She plays softball. She runs cross country. She's in so many clubs. Like she has friends. She's everywhere, just communicating and socializing with people, and she's getting all A's. Like she's excelling. Like I see her just living the way I do. And sometimes it is, I look at my crazy life and I'm like, man, I hope she doesn't live like that. You know, like, but I
live it well. Yeah.
I want to, when I get to that age, I just want to leave a legacy, Karla. Just a legacy of just how my mom did. Like my mom and every person that I've talked to that's known her, it was such a, your mom was amazing, right? Your mom was, so it wasn't that people just saying, oh, she was a good person. It was, she did this for me. She did that for me. She did this. Like, and that's where I want to get. It's weird to say, and it's not for, I understand when I help somebody, it comes back to me like in tenfold, right?
Yeah.
But I just really just want to just, what I see, and we talked about it before the podcast, what I see, I just want people to understand too. And if I could get people to understand, like, okay, I can believe in myself. I can not have to live this life that I'm in, right?
A choice,
right? And if I could do that, I'll be the happiest man in my 50s. And if I don't make it 50, I've tried.
Yeah. You gave it your all. I think it's giving it all, like with no expectations, right? You just like, you're creating such, you are already, without you even really realizing that you're already like, somehow we interconnected, it's like a web. We're just interconnected. I got connected with you. And the same way for me, if everybody says like, I've heard about you, I've been wanting to meet you. And it's curious because I'm like, I'm just being me, you know?
Yeah.
It's almost unconscious. And that's just, to be honest, I feel like your mom would say that. And like, mijo, like, it was just me.
Yeah.
I was just being me. And it was like, it's just me. It's your energy. And so once you understand that, even though we don't know if your mom was conscious about it, maybe she was very awakened, like very in tune that you just live life and just be a kind person, a kind human being. And I think we forget that so much because there's so much trauma in our world and consistently be given to us and fed mentally that humans forget to be human, understanding and have empathy that maybe they're having a bad day. And sometimes some people need an rude awakening. I've been not rude back, but I got into it one time at Chipotle because they were being rude to the cashier. I know. And they call me, don't be a therapist. Like, it kind of hit me. I'm like, am I being a therapist to this person to be like, you guys need to just lay off. Like, she's on training. Like, there's a fat line. Why are you guys being bitches to this girl? So
you were being.
I was defending the cash.
That's not being rude.
No, well,
I
was
just seeing someone helpless helping them out. That's not being rude. That's different. I thought you were like, give me my beans. Like,
no.
That's what I thought. Like, like you didn't put enough.
You didn't put enough. No, I've never.
What I thought you meant.
No, I was. My ex-husband jumped in first. We're both very similar in that place. He felt like she's being basically in a vulnerable position where she was getting red. She was nervous. She was getting trained in drive-through, and there's people in line, and so we jumped in, and I started jumping in because the people got crazy with him, and then I was like, wait a minute, you need to calm down. Like, he's just telling you guys, like, lay off. Like, she's learning, and she doesn't control the kitchen. Like, I know you guys are waiting for Chipotle burrito, but like, it's the fact, like, because they have pre-ordered the order. So that's what I mean. Like, sometimes people forget that we're humans. We're playing this role of human experience, like of different things. We're creators now of podcasts. I'm a hair artist. You are also a coach and stuff like that. But we have different roles that we play, and don't understand, like, people, like, they're all there trying to make their money and learning a new job. Like, how can you not empathize that? Because your time is valuable.
Well, that's what it is. People don't have empathy because they're worried about, like, they got to pay for their kids this, or they have to pay their house, their mortgage, they have to pay their car payment. Mm-hmm. They have their wife who's unhappy at home. They have their husband who's unhappy at home. So they're just full of this like we talked about, like, they're just walking around
their energy is so dense and heavy and tense. They're just, you can tell, like, they're just heavy, and that's one of the things I feel like your mom was, just being genuine, to people, and that marks people's hearts. And that's just one of the things, like, we can create wealth, right? But the wealth that sometimes we get, it gets construed as, like, yes, the material wealth, paper, but also, like, the amount of numbers, right, you have in your account that you don't have to worry about if you, like, spent a whole lot in a VIP room. But you're in a place where you're comfortable. But some people forget they're in that position, they have wealth, but they also so miserable. And so be able to learn that you experience how to reconnect yourself back with you. And you're learning that even more now, more than ever now, in your short time of, like, having these realizations right now, that you're discovering the new version of Jesse. Like, it's a new relationship with yourself. Yeah, absolutely. And it does take time. It does take practice when you have those moments, like, where how can I change this part of me, right? How can I become a better dad? How can I become a better parent? Spouse, partner, lover, whatever. Or even, if you work a 9-to-5 job, like, in your career, how can I be better without being so ungrateful, Instead of just be ungrateful, how can I change it, And you're right. It's the power. Literally, I've always said it, like, what is the power of the mind? Like, our minds are very powerful. Yeah. And I think you've changed so much throughout your evolution. And it's so beautiful to see that now. Like, you sharing this part of yourself from your growth as well.
It's so crazy. And I think a lot of it had to do with, like, I thank my mom, right? And then a lot of it, like, my dad always told me, like, you see things different. Like, it's just, I've always, even when I was a young kid, I was just weird, right? I was just always,
we know that.
But, like, he always told me, you see things different, and, like, it's why I got my third eye on my hand.
Your third eye, yes. So intrigued. I was like, does he know why he has a third eye? Or you think it's just cool to have a third eye?
No. It's because my dad used to always say that. He's like, you see things different. You have a third eye. And I was always that way. I never followed people. I was just more of, like, let me do my own thing. Yeah. Okay, you're gonna go. Everybody's gonna go do that. Well, I'm gonna go do this over here. If anybody wants to come, you guys are welcome.
So you were a bad influence too.
Oh,
I was. I know. My parents always thought, like, my friends were the bad influence. I'm like, hey, let's go.
But it was crazy because, like,
I have this idea.
But going back to where I grew up, like, there was a bunch of norteños and gangbangers.
Yeah.
And I had no problem, like, hanging out with them. Right? Not that I was a part of, like, I had I had a big old pompadour. I had
Rockabilly?
yeah, rockabilly.
You're a rockabilly. What?
Well, I'm like into rock.
You're
and all
into
that
everything.
stuff. And I would be at these parties, didn't fit in, but because and it's not even just the gangsters and all that. It's just everybody, right? Like, so I have no problem putting myself into places where I'm just open to just listening to people.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's like you're like me. Like I would talk to in high school. I would talk to everybody, even the most darkest soul in there, like gothics.
I want to know why.
Yes, that was me. I want to talk to him. Like trench coat, gothic. Like, why do you listen to Marilyn Manson? You know, like. Yeah. I mean, he's spooky as fuck, but tell me why you're attracted. And it was like my third eye. Like you say, like we intuitively start feeling drawn to people that we didn't see them different. We just saw them like intriguing, right? Like they're different. And like for me, like I had friendships that like sureñas and norteñas, and my couple of friends, they will stay. Actually, we will have them stay in our place. My mom was actually like very welcoming to my friends that were very wild, and I was not even like against her. Yeah. And my sister was really like, "You hanging out with norteña?" Yeah. I mean, I just saw him like human, if that makes sense.
Well, everybody starts off as a baby.
Yeah.
Everybody starts off as a baby. They start off.
There's no labels. Yeah. You're just human. Yeah. That's our only label we have.
And another thing is like, number one. That really, so my mom taught me, and like I had a little bit of just the way I was born, the way I am, of being able to just understand myself. The number one was fighting. Like I always go back to martial arts. I always like I want to promote it for people because it was such a we talked about before. Like when you get into a cage or a ring, like. There's no going, there's no leaving, like there's no saying I need to go restroom, right? Like,
can I go pee?
And it's just you have to face it, right? You have to face what's gonna happen. It's gonna be painful. It's gonna be nerve-wracking. You're gonna have fear, and when you go through all that,
that's crazy emotions all at once. Like knowing like I might get really hurt, you know.
So you go through all that, right? And
it's quite actually like I'm well, yeah.
And I did get
feeling it.
I broke my nose, and you go through all that, and the stuff in the real world, like it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like if they mess up your drink at Starbucks, or
it is what it is. That's my word.
Or if someone bumps into you at a club or something, like you realize like. One, you realize how painful fighting is. Two, you realize like, why are you gonna sweat it? Like, I know who I am. There's no one that could. Like, even if someone tries to fight me in the street and they know more martial arts than me, and they beat me up, like I have, it doesn't affect my ego.
Oh right? Wow!
Like it doesn't affect my ego if someone walks in. If someone challenges me, right? It doesn't affect my ego because I know who I am. Like I stood in front of a monster who I'm friends with to this day, and I've stood in front of other guys where I've beat them and they like I was in fear and I overcame that fear. So my ego is gone because I've already challenged myself. A lot of men walk around never challenging themselves, so they have to challenge the first thing that's in front of them, right? They're so it's
a different programming. I like that because I feel like that's the same way for a lot of military people. Yeah, like they have to face the fact that they might go to war, you know, and they get trained into like be in this position that's eventually you're gonna get in the fight, right? Or it might happen, and for me, God, it's so intriguing because as men, I mean, for women, of course, it's, you know, there's women fighters. For you, how is that? Like for women?
My sister?
Yeah. Like women fighters, like, because I mean, they're feminine, they're women, but to get into that shit, like you change your brain or I mean, like your mind, you know?
And it comes down to, it's not even a man-woman thing. It comes down to challenging yourself.
So basically it's like, yeah, because challenge is no gender. Is like you got to get to that situation where you just have to
And it's two different things. Like, I don't care what people say. A woman fighter, like watching people go through weight cuts or fight camps, or just through emotions, like it's two different things. Women and men go through. It's similar, but it's kind of too. It's sometimes it's harder for women, right? One, because there's not that many women fighters. So even at the amateur level, you're going to fight women that are really all in. For men, all men want to challenge themselves. So you get these guys that don't even train. They walk into a cage and then they just get beat up. Like most women fighters, they're not in there to challenge themselves. They're in there because they're serious about it. Right? Wow. So every girl that you fight is going to be all in. If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So it's different. I know in that way, in that form, because men are there to get challenged, right? And the women are there because this is what I want to do.
Yeah, because all of them are different. Like how many? There's not that many women fighters. Like I know a lot of men fighters, but like around town, but there's not that many women. Like my sister and my sister-in-law Nashi, they're the only two in town.
Literally. Out of how many fighters, you know? And that is so wild. It is so true. You know, and I do get excited when I see like fights with women because my energy is, I'm a warrior in heart. And when it comes to energy and spirituality, because when you have to face your inner shadows, you have to face it like a warrior. You can't just go like this. No, you have to face it like face to face and see it for what it is with no judgment and say, I'm here to face why I've been rejecting this part of myself, you know? And that's a challenge for me because I'm like, I got to face this emotion that's very uncomfortable. But for you in the physical form, you are also facing that as like, this is it. This can be either I'm going to win or I'm going to be really injured, you know? In the form of when you get challenged in that way. For me, it's just more in the spiritual aspect.
And it's still a simulation, right? So fighting is a simulation.
Yes.
Fighting is a simulation of being a warrior.
Yes.
Right? You have rules. You have a ring. You have like it's simulated, right?
Yeah.
So the guys that really are warriors and challenge themselves being in that warrior mindset are the people that go in the military. The people that see war. Like one of my best friends has been on tours to Iraq and it's just I respect him to the fullest. Like it's just what he had to go through was nothing compared was
mental.
Fighting is nothing compared to that.
No,
like,
absolutely
you know,
no.
Like, you know, so it's just it's still fighting is still simulated, right? But the real motherfuckers are the guys that go into military. Those are the ones that are warriors, right? Because we're all looking for that. I feel like and I think you talked about it. I feel like men are looking to be warriors, and the guys that can't do that, they're so like
frustrated.
Yeah.
I just think frustration because men get frustrated when it's a lot of energy, stuck inside. And that's why, like, when you retain semen, sorry if I'm bringing sexuality into this, but that's why boxers hold off, right? Because
that's
fighter, is that a myth or what?
It doesn't make any difference. I don't think so.
No, really?
Well, if you're constantly worried about women and having sex with women, yes, that's a problem. You're gonna end up being like not thinking about the fight. But when it comes to that, I really don't see a difference, right? Like even like you hear the professional fighters, like the elite fighters, they talk about it, and it's like more of an old school way of thinking. Like if you really think of like the science behind it, when you do let semen go, your body has to produce more testosterone because it's building up.
Yeah.
It's building. So if you do release, then it's building more testosterone, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So it's kind of like maybe you have to program it like you're gonna have a fight.
Just
so you have more energy, more power,
but it's wild
more testosterone
because we're all in. Sorry, I'm like going on a tangent about fighting, but we're all in this. We're in Los Baños, right? There's so many normal people. There's people out of shape. There's people like there's people, regular people that never seen combat at any form, sports, war, and they don't understand the difference. Like even from amateur to pro, Like I was recently in a room full of pro fighters, and it's just different. Like they're elite athletes, plus they're warriors, plus like you
It's
just
crazy.
feel
It's
it.
true. A
You
lot
can
of
smell it.
yeah, it's wild because it is true. A lot of MMA or a lot of UFC fighters are ex-military people.
Yeah.
It's they. I think they use that energy as well. And of course, there's trauma in the military itself, um, but that's another form that they escape and as a form of coping, right? For whatever experience they got to experience out in the battlefields or just in general going to the military. Boot camp can be sometimes traumatic for some souls, and sometimes we don't think about those things that they get to unprogram to reprogram to think like military like mentality versus when they get out of the military, now they have to recope again, readapt to this reality versus the other reality they had. So I think UFC, MMA, martial arts, it's huge for military because some of them use that as a form to heal. I feel like that's a tool.
Yeah. It's big for PTS.
Yeah.
Because because I can't speak on military people because I've never been there, but me having PTS from my mom,
yeah,
like I did go through. I say that I didn't mourn, but I did go through a lot of trauma, a lot of nightmare sweats. I went through not even being able to sleep. I went through like just anger, like depression, like so much stuff where it was just all PTS, like from seeing seeing a body in trauma, like hurt, right?
Yeah,
like,
and then how can you help her,
yeah,
right?
so
and you're like you're a kid yourself, and you're having this like reality face on right there and then, and to be able to go back to that timeline, sometimes it's too hurtful, so you could numb yourself, right? You can go to many things to escape that emotion, and of course you were able to have a great tool, martial arts, because you were able to move that energy through in the mat, which is awesome, where you're in a good place, mentally now. I mean, I just love the fact that how much growth you had as a human being, period. Of course, you are a partner, you are a dad, and you've been a coach before, and many other hats that you wear. But the reality is, like, who you are as a human being, you evolved pretty well. You're healthy, you could be in such worse scenario.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I think I just don't stop working on myself. Like, I hate the fact that I'm out of shape right now. Like, I'm like, I don't hate it, but I'm like, dude, you got to do something. I can't be doing all this business stuff or even podcasting stuff and be out of shape. Like,
it's the alignment, right? Like, be healthy in your mind, be healthy in your emotions and your soul and your spiritual connection with source through you. A lot of people think like being like in church or going to, I mean, nature can be God. You connect with yourself. That's a direct source portal for God. And so you having that connection with Creator, and taking care of your body, it's in the manner of like what you intake, what you eat. You still live life, there's moments, you get your burrito.
I was drunk on Saturday.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to live all the different
Yeah.
things and be able to rebalance and bounce back and say, my green juice in the morning, be able to hydrate all week and you know what to do, and of course there's, again, you can probably next year decide, I will not longer drink, and that's okay too. And then next year, you're like, I'm back to drinking, and it's okay. All that is just for you to evolve in those transitions to a better version of yourself. Yeah. Does that make sense? Sometimes we take things out of our lives to welcome the new. Yeah. And then you integrate that new, and then you bring again, a glass of wine. Oh, I can smoke a cigar on the Sunday. Yeah. Like, all those things are beautiful things when you're aligned with yourself, when you're connected with yourself, and you're not using substances or women, for men, or women with men or sexually formed, to escape from your pain, escape from the painful memories. And when those things come up, in my reality, when those things happen, Jesse, is because my own source within me is trying to tell me it's time to let it go. Like, if something shows up in my presence, like, I thought I worked that out. You're like, I thought I have, attachments to that story of that experience, but those experiences will revisit you so you can face it and heal it through love and the acceptance of that reality in that time, and be able to move on forward and be able to see it that as a lesson itself. And like you said about your mom, that you see it with a beautiful way, right? That's just I think that's part of the human experience, is they're all lessons, even the painful ones. So then therefore, when you're in your full enjoyment, like when you laugh, I love your laugh. You laugh as loud as I do.
I'll try not to laugh.
Yeah, and then I snort. And then, that itself. I was telling my friend today, she's going through a hard transition about her child, revisiting leukemia in her body, and be able to celebrate her and be able to bring joy into the mom's birthday, right? And her daughter going through that, be able to celebrate both of them, because that joy in that energy of love, be able to celebrate someone's, birthday, it's another year to celebrate that you now can decide how to live again in another day and in another day, and celebrate it with creation. Like, be able to, like, okay, I'm going to create love. I'm going to create art with joy, and you start being the manifester of your realities, if that makes sense. Therefore, your medicine is you. And I've said it before, joy, when you're in that frequency of joy, when you're just in that joyful moment and you're laughing hard to the core of your stomach, just like, that is the highest frequency for a human being. And you can manifest so much because you're in joy. You're not in fear. You're not in sadness, and you're not in pain. You're in joy. And that's like when you come into gratitude, and that's when you start seeing, like, oh my God, I'm so blessed. Like, everything around me, it's because I manifested it, because I choose to keep those characters in my life. They bring joy. They bring excitement, inspiration, that it keeps you in that good vibration, and that's the good vibes. Like, why keep, things that no longer serve you, right? And so people that come in your life, there are versions of you. And that's what I mean. Like, they will become your mirrors. Yeah. So your partner, your daughter, everything, you see all the beauty in them, it's in you. All you see, when there's people that say, I'm so triggered. It's like, well, look into that trigger. Where is it coming from? Get curious. Don't judge it. Just fucking look at it. And it's like, fuck, man, that person annoyed me the fuck, man. Yeah. And it's like, it's something not outside of you. That triggers inside of you because there is something that you haven't looked into. And so that's part of the human experience. Everything that you created, Jesse, the people that are in your life, it's because there's those people that you want to have them in your life and your life story. And one of, like, hopefully you get to it, maybe listening to it while you're driving. I mean, Mastery of Love. It's the awesome book of Don Miguel Ruiz, and you're the creator of your life. You're the artist. Yeah. God is the source who lives through us. He gives us the breath of life, but yet you are who co-creates it. How you want to evolve, it's free will. It's how, if you want to be miserable in pain, then play that part. But play it well, don't fucking bitch about it. I mean, that's just how I feel like your story brought this inspiration of speech, because that's just another thing that I love. I learn from another person's story, even about myself. Yeah. All right, Jesse. We're going to wrap it up. Anything else you want to share, or what will you love somebody who's listening to this podcast of this episode, anything that you feel that you can encourage, or medicine that you can give?
So, sorry.
No, go ahead. Sorry. That's all right.
So, I mean, I was 28 years old. I was driving for FedEx, and I would listen to podcasts all the time, right? And it was always everybody. I would listen to books. I got so much knowledge from just driving for hours, right? So I'm just listening to books and podcasts, and I just heard stories of people doing what they love, right? And it means a lot to me to be able to be doing this and to share other people's stories that are living free and help producing their podcast now. if I could say one thing to the person listening, and most of the time people listening to the podcast are working and doing something, if you don't love where you're at, it's time to change it. It's different if you have, and I talked about this, it's different if you have all these kids, or you've made the choice to have kids and now it's time to take care of them. Right, that time will pass.
Yes,
right? It doesn't last forever.
It's not nothing, not even emotions. Like we hold the tears, like you know, like. But everything's temporary. Yeah. Like we just think we get so attached to like it's gonna be forever. It's gonna last forever. You know, just feel it, right? Yeah. And everything like that. Even seasons, we call it seasons or phases, like moons, like the moon phases. Like it's just temporary. It's just part of that, and it's time to move on.
But if it's the person that's just on the edge of like they don't have responsibilities and they're just right there from like going all in on something they love, right? Or even starting it, like go do it, go try it. It will work out. If it doesn't work out, you'll learn and do something else. I guarantee you it. That's how my journey's been. That doesn't work out, I go to something else. Every time I go to something else, it grows into something. I meet a Karla, like exactly like. Right when I met you, I was going through a transition of quitting coaching, right?
Yeah.
Of actually taking a break because my end goal is owning a own gym, but
I already see you owning a gym. Just saying.
I was transitioning into quitting, right? Mm-hmm. And as because at that time I felt like it was a failure, right? As I failed. Boom, another opening comes, right? A door opens. I meet a Karla. I meet somebody else. And the journey keeps going.
Yeah.
So just jump into it and see what happens. That's it.
Yeah, just ride on the front seat of the roller coaster. Enjoy the ride. I always see, like, I was afraid of this. I'm like, but you know what? I've been, like, told so many times, just do it, Karla. Just do it. People need to hear your thoughts, your belief systems, and I believe this and I don't believe that, and then I evolve. I'm evolving, and so those versions of myself, I think a lot of people can resonate, like, oh shit, that was a version of Karla. She was a party girl. What? And then a lot of people can realize, like, we get attached to, like, I don't have to be that identity. I played the role and it worked out and it had fun and I enjoy it. Now I'm playing this part where I'm enjoying it with you because you're co-creating with me and my team in the back. I'm just all the supporters. I'm super grateful everybody who believes in us because creating things, and I think this is a message for creators who are in the virtual, like you said, and like I'm in the sidelines. So should I? Should not? Just do it. Like once you get into that, let's do it. The universe will bring it. Like, it will make it happen. You start seeing it happening already in that moment. It starts manifesting, and I think you did it. And you unconsciously like, what? Okay, let's collab. You know, and that's the coolest part about this journey. And we're gonna enjoy this ride, honestly, Jesse.
You haven't even experienced, like, by the time this comes out, it would already. People are already listening, but you haven't experienced like people listening yet, and I can't wait to see. I get to see your transformation too.
Yeah,
like, you've helped me out in so many ways. Of I've told you the other day I had a transition in the a learning lesson.
Realization.
Realization.
Yes.
Yeah, and
you're gonna say a realization is a lot because you're like, God, I had a realization, Karla. Boom.
But it's meeting somebody on a different level and just like you're watching me. I'm also like, right when I started this, I was like, oh, Karla doesn't know what she's getting into. This is gonna be awesome. So it's just the journey's just starting, and like, yeah, I'm excited.
I'm excited too.
Thank you, Karla.
No, thank you. Thank you. And I'm gonna wrap it up, you guys. Thank you for listening to us, to me and Jesse, and it's a awesome sesh of conversation with him, because even though we might look like quite special people, we're not. We are. Nah, let's just put it like that. He is Aquaman, and I'm just a badass hair artist. But
my hair's all jacked up right now. I didn't even comb it.
He's just wild. He's a wild man. And thank you for listening to us, making time, be able to edify your soul, be able to explore different podcasts. And if you bump into this podcast, please just give us a thumbs up, subscribe, share, and be able to connect with us. You're able to message us privately as well, and you can probably be my guest. Send a story. I'm open to listen to different stories, and converse with me and sit down, have a kombucha. All right, guys. Thank you for listening. Love you guys. Yay.
Peace.